Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Matthew Hockey Podcast. So I'm here today, Declan Vargas, Sr., joined by senior goalie of the Stags team and honorable mention, Matt Peterson. How are you doing today, Matt?
Pretty good. Nice to be here. Fun to be here talking about the Caps games, all the NHL playoffs, and we're also here with the person next to you.
Yeah, that's a senior baseball player and an avid Caps fan, Sean O'Connor. And so, Sean, I heard you were at that game last night.
Yeah, I got the opportunity to go to Game 7 last night. It was my second Game 7 I've ever been to, luckily. So it was a great time. The atmosphere was amazing. Obviously, the outcome wasn't really what everyone expected. So it was tough, but it was a great game.
So what was the feeling? On TV, you could tell there's definitely some nervousness during those two overtimes.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, the Caps started off great. 3 goals. It was 3-1, and the shorthanded one that made it 2-1. Obviously, that hurt a lot. You could tell Caps fans started to get really nervous after that. When Burakovsky and Wilson scored, the place was loud. It was electric. You had the feeling it was kind of like Game 5. It was going to be a 5-6-0 game. It was really good. But then they struck on shorthanded goal, and everyone kind of started sitting on their hands a little bit. And then we made it 3-1. Kuznetsov had a great shot, and they got a lucky one on the turnaround, and then in the third, it was a bad goal for Hopi. I want to know what you think, because you're a goalie for hockey, and I thought his angle was a little off a little bit, but let's just hear your input on that.
One, it's Game 7. You can't be letting up goals like that. It's a make or break kind of game, and you got to have the ones that you got to have. It's a very easy shot to stop, in my opinion. I think if I look back on the play, he was shifting away from the puck, leaving open that far side. But overall, I think he made up for it with a couple saves. There was a couple goals that went in that I think he could have had. I mean, Coach Tony, the head coach of the Stags program here, he says, don't worry about if you let in a goal that you could have had. Just make the one you shouldn't have had. And I think he's kind of made up for that with a couple big saves off of turnovers in that OT time.
Yeah, he definitely made a couple big saves in overtime. I just feel like compared to last year and this year, I feel like we needed more. The Caps needed more from Braden Holtby in this series. I mean, you see games in Game 3, he gave up 5 goals. He wasn't spectacular, obviously, yesterday. It seems like last year we got that goaltending from him that we needed throughout the whole playoffs. And this year, through the short time that we had, he wasn't at his best. And obviously that was a couple of bad bounces you saw in Game 6, the tip by Justin Williams. No goalie in the league is going to stop that.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously it's tough. It was a great series, no doubt about that. The Hurricanes deserved it. They're a young team. They're going to be really, really, really good in the next couple of years. But that's it for the Caps this year. Defending champs been taken down.
Yeah. I want to speak on your point about the not getting the goaltending that they got from last year. I think that's part of that is coming from Barry Trotz going to the Islanders. He took the goalie coach, Mitch Korn, and when I'm training, we always make the joke about the Mitch Korn effect, because wherever Mitch Korn is, the goalie seems to be like the best goalie in the league. And the second he leaves, he becomes the most average goalie. So I think part of him not getting the goaltending came from Mitch Korn.
And you also see that Braden Holtby played more games in the regular season this year than he did last year. I feel like last year, Philip Grubauer, who's obviously with the Avalanche now, moving on in the second round, kind of took a lot of that weight off his shoulders in the regular season, kind of stepping up in big moments for the Caps. So he was kind of rested up when he got that chance in the first round last year, Holtby. And then this year, it was like Phoenix Copley was his backup, who's a good goalie, but he's not Philip Grubauer. So it was almost like, Holtby's been playing a lot, he's tired, and then once you start getting a double overtime in Game 7, it's rough, and you really can't do anything about it.
And this is also a time where obviously it's only round 1, but now that they're out, all of a sudden you start hearing all the injuries that everyone had, everything, especially hockey, especially is known for people just play through whatever.
It's huge.
It's like, what was it? Didn't Ovi play with like a broken hand or something like last year?
Oh yeah,
they just play through all these injuries.
Like a couple of years before that, he had a bruise the size of like half a baseball bat down his leg. It was ridiculous.
That's definitely crazy how. And also, speaking of the other goalie, so Peter Mrazek, I actually personally know him. He's when he was in the OHL. He was at the Ottawa 67s, and I lived in Ottawa, so he was like my next door neighbor, so it was actually pretty cool. Like, you get to know him, see him on this big stage on TV. I thought he played pretty well. I mean, some of the earlier games he had some goals that he shouldn't have let in, but overall in overtime especially, he had some pretty big saves.
Well, when you were talking about injuries, I feel like that's another reason why the Caps weren't able to advance this year. Obviously, you saw a big-time defenseman, Michael Kempney, go down against the Lightning in the regular season, and then obviously T.J. Oshie in the series just breaking his collarbone. That's just, it's awful for the Caps. It's awful for him. You obviously want to see a guy out there.
Well, also realize, like, we can't blame it all on injuries. I mean, Ovechkin rocked Svechnikov and put him out for the rest of the season. Or not the rest of the season, but the rest of the series at least. And I know that there was a couple other people going through injuries on the Hurricane side. I think mainly the reason the Caps lost that is they just got outworked.
They did. They didn't want it as much.
Yeah, the Caps on paper are a more skilled team, but when hard work outworks skill, that team's going to win every time.
Yes.
And that's what DeMatha goes by. We may not be the most skilled team. Like, there's teams in the WCAC that have a lot more AAA guys, but we just outwork guys.
Exactly.
And we win our board battles, and that's just what wasn't happening last night. Like, we saw the 6-0 game.
Worked them.
Yeah. But not only that, like, the Hurricanes were pulling up. Like, there was one goal where Ovechkin was going in. You see...
it's almost like he didn't want to get hit.
Yeah, he pulled up and just gave the puck to Ovechkin and gave it right to the slot. Yeah. And I think that's one of the big reasons what happened in Game 7. The first half, they were doing really well, and once they gave up that shorthanded goal, that was it.
Yeah, you could tell, definitely, in overtime, I don't know how it seemed in person on TV, it sounded like the Caps just, it didn't seem like an overtime game from their perspective. While the Carolina, Carolina was just giving everything and everything, especially, what was it? The guy who scored the goal, McGinn. Yeah. He was a role player, and he didn't play much in that first overtime. That second overtime he was in, you can just tell the fresh legs. You could tell when the guy got the penalty for flipping it out of the
delay game penalty.
He was just I don't know if you saw on TV. His hands were in his head, like he was devastated, like they were carrying. Well, I didn't seem the Caps players cared that much until after they lost.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough. Obviously, not the ending Caps fans wanted. Huge year last year, not the same result this year, but a lot of surprises in the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely not the most shocking game.
It's been crazy, and another series that shocked everyone was the Islanders and the Penguins as well.
Yeah.
You expected a series like that to go 6 or 7 games. It ended up the Islanders beating the Penguins in 4 games. Which I watched all 4 games in that series because I expected the Caps to win this series like most people did, and I said, okay, I want this series to go 6 or 7 games so that the Caps can get either one of the teams that have already fought hard and already maybe injured, stuff like that, but didn't happen. The Islanders, Barry Trotz just had them looking amazing. And I mean, the Islanders looked really good, but at the same time, you looked at Pittsburgh, and it wasn't the same Pittsburgh Penguins team that we've seen. I mean, they weren't pushing as hard. There was something about the crowd in Pittsburgh just did not. I think it was falling down 2-0 on the island, and they just didn't seem up to it, I thought.
Touching on that, like, I was watching Game 4. I don't think the Penguins cared at all.
No, it looked worse than the Caps did.
Yeah.
I mean, the Penguins scored, I think it was about a minute in to Game 4, and just didn't score again.
But, I mean, like, they were down. I forgot what it was. Like, it was a close game, Game 4, but they just weren't, like, pushing at all.
Yeah, it was 2-1. But the thing about the Islanders, the whole series was the Penguins would score a goal, and then the Islanders would just come right back down and score a goal. They would just deplete all the energy that the Penguins had built up through that goal. And that's just a Barry Trotz team. That's a Barry Trotz thing to do. And you saw he did that last year with the Caps in the playoffs and the playoff run. And he's doing it for the Islanders right now. They're a scary team.
Yeah. Another thing is that Pittsburgh fans always love to say Sidney Crosby's still the best player in the league. How can the best player in the league get 1 point?
I know. I saw that.
The best player in the league be on minus. Yeah, exactly, on -4. Like, you have that Penguins team. They have Malkin. They have Crosby. They have Kessel. They're supposed to be one of the top teams, like, talent-wise, every year, and they should be able to outgun anyone. and they just did not do that.
I mean, that was more of a disappointment than the Caps series was for Penguins fans. I mean, you look at their loss to the Caps last year in overtime, which was obviously heartbreaking, and then you look at this year, and I thought they were going to come out, and I thought they were going to steal a game on the island like the Penguins usually do. They were going to come back, win 2 in Pittsburgh, and really take away the series. I picked the Penguins to win the series in 7 games, but when I saw them come out in games 1 and 2, I knew there was something different, and it's almost like Barry Trotz has Pittsburgh figured out. I mean, he's played them the last 3 or 4 years. It's easy to figure a team out when you've played them that much. So it's amazing what they're doing there on the island. I think they're gonna make a long run in the playoffs.
Now, the difference between the Penguins and the Caps game, or the Penguins and Caps series, is the Caps series was a 4-line effort. You saw production from Ovechkin, you saw it from your top guys, and you got some depth guys. Penguins weren't like that.
No, that's usually what they do.
Yeah, Evgeny Malkin in minus, I think he's like -3. Crosby a -4 with 1 point. Gensel, one of the top young guns in the league, another minus. And you just can't have that. It's do or die for your season, and you got to have your star players be stars with your depth guys adding to them. But if your star players aren't doing anything, how can you add anything to that?
Yeah. What's amazing about this Islanders team is they look that good. Imagine they still had Tavares. How much better they would look.
But I feel like that's one of the things that fueled them the most. Barry Trotz came in. You lost your star player, leaving to go to his hometown in Toronto, and it fueled that whole team.
Yeah, you could tell even the fan base was rallying behind that, the fact that he wasn't there anymore, and saying that the "we don't need you" chant. They kind of rallied around that. But I mean, this team was built to win from top to bottom. They get 4 lines of effort from everybody. I mean, you look on paper, maybe not the most talented guys, but like going back to the Hurricanes, they outwork you. And then when you get your star goalie like Robin Lehner, nobody saw that coming.
Yeah.
The Mitch Korn effect, like I added earlier. Lowest goals against in the league, lowest goals against average, and then best goalie tandem in the league. I mean, and Lehner's a Vezina candidate for best goaltender in the league. When you get good goaltending, you can beat anybody. Because when your goalie's not letting in a goal, you only have to score 1.
Yeah, remember how it was for years and years when you'd always get the Rangers in the second round. Especially, I'm a Flyers fan, so you'd always have Lundqvist going, making a save, sticking it there. You'd be able to maybe get 1 past him in the third, but by then the Rangers would have 2 or 3 goals. It was just impossible, all because the defensemen were diving in front of every shot, and any shots that got through, Lundqvist had it easy. It was just kind of, it's demoralizing because it gets in the players' back of their heads. We're not able to score on this goalie. We're not able to score.
Yeah, bad doubt.
Well, Robert Lehner was amazing in that series. One of the reasons they swept the Penguins. And another goalie who was amazing was Bobrovsky for the Blue Jackets. 4-0 series sweep for the second wild card team over one of the best teams to ever play in the NHL.
Now, if the one series that I would have predicted to be a sweep would have been Tampa in 4, and I actually had that. To get swept by a wild card team that barely made that clinched playoffs on their second to last game in the season, and then have the lead for 1 period, that's totally unacceptable.
Something's got to change there. They do this in the playoffs. It seems like every year. It's almost like the Caps did, before last year, and I just don't understand it. How you can win 62 games in the regular season and get swept.
Tied a record for most wins in a season.
That's insane.
But the thing I saw in this series was it wasn't a talent for talent. It wasn't like a one-on-one like star players going at it. I think Tampa Bay got outcoached. Yeah,
I agree. And it seemed like Tampa's coach in the post-game interviews he was not very engaged.
Oh yeah, he looked shocked.
Motivating. Yeah,
he looked shocked at Game 3.
I mean, I have to admit, I thought the Lightning were going to win the series, but I didn't think it was going to be easy because we saw last year how the Blue Jackets played the Caps in the first round last year. They come out in the first 2 games, and they'll work you, and it doesn't matter what your lead is, they'll come back. And That's what we saw in Game 1, down 3-0 in Tampa Bay. Not an easy place to play.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not an easy place to come back from a 3-goal deficit in the first round. And they did that, won the game, and right then you could tell something was different about this Blue Jackets team. John Tortorella had Columbus just worked up from the beginning, and you just saw Columbus's fans were absolutely ridiculous in Games 3 and 4. And I think that's definitely one of the biggest reasons they pulled it out in Game 4. Was I thought the Lightning actually played a really good Game 4 compared to how they were playing in the beginning of the series.
Mm-hmm.
But you just saw Columbus's fans kind of rally behind their team and get them the W.
Yeah, and if you look at their forms coming into playoffs, though, they're both 7-3-0. They're both
in the last 10.
Themselves. Columbus was coming in hot. Tampa Bay is that's kind of the record they had the whole season.
Yeah.
But Columbus was feeling themselves, and you can tell they just took it right over.
Well, playoff hockey for them started weeks before playoffs actually started because
that's what matters.
Yeah, they're already in the mindset, so they were going at it. But I mean, Lightning, looking at this, they were 103 plus on their goals.
That's amazing.
Goals for and against average.
Mm-hmm.
Blue Jackets 26. That just and to get swept by a 80-point difference, 70-point difference.
Well, the thing is, I feel like the Lightning overlooked the Blue Jackets in many different ways because they said, oh, they're the second wildcard team. Well, you look at the Metropolitan Division and you say, okay, the Blue Jackets were the second wildcard team with 98 points.
Yep.
And what the Caps have? 106, something like that.
Something like that.
It was not a big margin at all between the 1 seed in the Metropolitan and the last seed to make the playoffs in the Metropolitan. So, I mean, the Blue Jackets I feel like they're poised for a great run too. I mean, they're gonna have a tough series with Boston. Boston's a great team.
Yeah, like on your point that the Columbus had 98 points. Lightning were 20 points ahead of second place. They clinched the President's Trophy a month ago.
And we've seen with the Caps before. Winning the President's Trophy is a curse.
The one thing that I saw that the Lightning weren't able to adjust to, most teams back off of them because their talent, their skill, their speed, everybody backs off. That way they can defend in their end and push forward. Blue Jackets didn't do that. They went at them, forechecked them, and the Lightning were just confused.
Well, I think that's another thing. Winning the President's Trophy, kind of the curse is that, and you win the President's Trophy, obviously things are going well. You're not facing much adversity. This season. You're not facing the forecheck. You don't have as much time. You start panicking. You don't know what to do. You start turning on each other, kind of thing. It's just you could tell. Just Tampa Bay was just shocked out of the gate, and they didn't have the experience facing adversity this season to overcome that.
Yeah. So we've talked about all the shockers in the Eastern Conference so far, but there was one series, our last series, that really wasn't a huge shocker. We've seen it in the past. The Bruins beat the Maple Leafs in 7 games.
Really fun series.
Yes.
I mean,
my favorite.
It's almost like deja vu. Didn't that happen last year? Didn't that happen in 2013?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like it happens every single time the Maple Leafs play the Bruins, but it was a hard-fought series. The Maple Leafs had a chance to end it in 6 games at home. They haven't gotten that chance in the last 2 times they played the Bruins in the playoffs. They had it, and they let it slip away.
Yeah. The one series I liked about this was it seemed very even on paper, but I'm not a guy to look at it on paper. So even on the ice, they were going at each other's throats. Nazem Kadri suspended for cross-checking Jake DeBrusk in the head and suspended for the rest of the series. But, I mean, yeah, he might have got suspended, but that just shows, these guys are enemies. They see each other on the street. They hate each other. Mm-hmm. And when you get Game 7 hockey with 2 rivals like that, one of my favorite things to watch.
Yes, that was a great game. They had the Sixers were on, but we were turning that off on that night to watch that Game 7. It was just an exciting series, just a great time. I mean, who doesn't love a good Boston-Toronto series?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it's always a classic. It just seems like Boston always comes out on top. So if I'm correct, that's all of our Eastern.
That's all the East, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be back next with the Western Conference. Also some shockers in the West too.
Yep.
came and went like the summertime. Was that a sunset or sunrise? Looking back like where'd the time go? So much for trying to keep this moving slow.
Man, I really wish I went to a good school. Oh well, that'll never happen. I just better watch TV.
Something, Fred? Band-Aid plastic strip. And steel and...
Whoa, that looked interesting. I need to go back. Wow, I really want to go to that school.
All right, welcome back to the NHL Playoff Podcast. We're now going to go to the west of the NHL, and we're going to start with the Flames and Avalanche. The Flames being the winner of the West Division, taking on the Avalanche. What did you guys think about that one?
Yeah, I mean, another huge surprise in these crazy playoffs. I mean, Avalanche dropped the first game in Calgary, which wasn't a huge surprise. Once again, I picked Calgary to win this series, and they won Game 2 in overtime. And it's almost like after that point, the momentum really shifted towards the Avalanche. Won both at home, and then obviously the last one in Calgary.
Yeah, it's just once again, team doesn't face that much adversity. They're number one in the West. They win their first game. They think it's good. Then they get gentleman swept. Like that's just how it is. Sometimes you just always have to remember to just stay intense and just. You can't. Once again, the Flames have so much talent. Johnny Hockey, Sean Monahan. There's no reason they should be losing to Avalanche, even though they're a very good team. They'll obviously stop by a very good goaltender. There's just you got to win it.
Now I don't want to toot my own horn, but I actually got this one right. I picked the Avalanche in 5.
Okay.
Avalanche in 5.
I just didn't think that the goalie duo matched up. I thought. I think Grubauer and Varlamov, if he ever has to come in. I mean,
2 former Caps.
Yeah, and Mike Smith and Rinnick, they weren't doing well in the season, so I just picked the Avalanche to take this one just based on goaltending.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, Philip Grubauer can stand on his head in the playoffs at any time. He's a really talented goaltender, and you just saw with Calgary's goal. Calgary's offense really pushed them to win the Western Conference this year, and in the playoffs, it's all about defense and goaltending. You see that with the Maple Leafs. You see that kind of with the Caps in the series. But Philip Grubauer had an amazing, outstanding series.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I couldn't see coming is Nathan MacKinnon, leading the charge. Yeah. Most points by any player in the playoffs right now. Yeah, I don't know what the stat is, but, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's a great hockey player. He's young, and he's going to push the Avalanche to be a great team in the next couple of years. We're kind of seeing a little shift in the NHL right now because we're seeing all the young stars coming up. Yeah. And you see that with a guy like Nathan MacKinnon carrying his team to the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, but it's funny you see, because of that young shift, you also have veterans like Justin Williams or Patrick Marleau, who are they're by far the oldest person on their team.
Veteran guys.
That Toronto Maple Leafs team is so young, you have Marleau leading it. Or that Carolina team that's so young, you have Justin Williams leading it. Or Boston, which they have some veterans, but guys like Zdeno, Chara, older players still have their role. But soon enough, in a couple of years, there's just going to be all these young players flying around.
It's the younger, faster generation coming up, and it's been crazy in these playoffs. And you knew it was coming soon. One of these playoffs. It's been the last couple of years. It's kind of been when you expected, except for Vegas, obviously last year with those crazy upsets. But I mean, all the young talent coming up is insane, and we're going to see teams that haven't been very good in the past start to become pretty good.
And I think that's the thing with the Avalanche. They were the worst team 2 years ago. Barely made playoffs last year, and this year, they've been rebuilding for this younger, trend, I'll say. So they're leading the charge with this young trend, and it's paying off for them now. And we see that with Nathan McKinnon. Philip Grubauer, I would consider quite young for a goalie.
No, I agree.
Yeah. And the Flames still have a lot of older guys. Mike Smith is in his mid-30s.
Yeah, he's almost done.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's almost done.
Maybe
Yeah.
if they had Arizona Mike Smith, this series might have gone different.
Yeah.
He used to stand on his head for them, but not anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talked about teams kind of being bad in the last couple years and then making the playoffs this year, like the Avalanche, and then you see a team that was literally in last place come close to the All-Star break and pushing to make the playoffs in the St. Louis Blues, and now they just beat the Jets 4-2 in the series.
Yeah, I also got that one right based on that one stat. They were the hottest team since the All-Star break.
Yep.
And with their new coach coming from the All-Star break, and not to mention probably the best goaltender I've seen in Jordan Binnington.
Yeah, 24-5, that's insane.
Yeah, like
You're not supposed to do that.
I mean, the only person close to that was Andrei Vasilevsky, but we know how that turned out.
That turned out, exactly. And what surprises me about the Winnipeg Jets, you saw it last year in the third round when they went down in the conference finals. You see that they have a huge fan base, and you see the whiteout. It's so cool, but for some reason they have such a huge problem winning at home.
Yeah. And
it's crazy.
I mean, one thing that we were watching, I was watching NHL Network, and they were talking about how the home team is actually getting more pressure than they used to.
Yeah.
Like, it used to be, good, we're at home, we have a fan base behind us.
Mm-hmm.
But now there's this new pressure that, oh, we're at home, we have to win. Or if we're away, it's, okay, it's not our barn. Right.
Almost.
If it's not at our barn, when we come back home, it's our game. But when they come back home, it's stressful because they want to put on a show for their fans. Their fans want to be on the winning side, and it sucks losing at home.
Yeah, and another thing about the Jets, Patrick Laine really struggled in the last quarter of the season. I think I heard a stat when I was watching Game 1 that he had 1 goal in 20-some games leading up to the playoffs. And he scored 1 in Game 1, but he just wasn't big enough. He's supposed to be their star player. He's supposed to be the next Alex Ovechkin, say, on the power play. And he just wasn't there. Wasn't there for the Jets this year.
Yeah, that's the problem with all these young kids being up and comers. They're still young kids.
Yeah, they're still young.
Yeah.
These are kids that we're talking about. Like,
yeah, they're just like a couple years older than us.
That's crazy.
Some of these guys are 21. Smechnikov, a year older than me.
Yeah, it's just like
getting knocked out by a veteran.
Yeah.
He made a 19-year-old's decision when he decided to.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's all his fault. But
like Laine, he was so incredible last year during the regular season, and just you go up and down, you have your slumps, and just hope they can bounce back next year.
Yeah,
I expect this next upcoming series, the Blues and Stars, to be a really good series.
Yeah.
I mean, you have two teams that I didn't pick to get past the first round, and now they're both. I mean, all these series are going to be amazing, but the Blues and Stars are definitely one.
Yeah, I got 3 series right, and it was the Jets and Blues, it was the Avalanche, and I believe I got the who did I get? I think it was the Islanders series.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching hockey all my life, and I got 1 series right.
Yeah, but I mean, like, out of 8,
Yeah.
and we're talking about all these series of upsets.
Mhm.
I mean, it's ridiculous. No one can see this coming. Like, Stars and Blues. The Stars were with the Avalanche a couple years ago. Like, it went Avalanche, Stars, and I believe the Coyotes at like 50 points.
Especially in a small hockey market like Dallas. I mean, obviously, football is their sport in Dallas, and then you see a hockey team start to come up through the making. It's good to see that they're spreading the game down there. So last year we saw the Vegas Golden Knights beat San Jose Sharks, and you thought that it was going to be the same way this year, and it ended up not being that.
Do you have anything to touch that?
Oh, San Jose. I mean, San Jose is an interesting team, and almost every other one of these playoff teams, besides I'd say the Bruins, have really like embraced the young up and coming.
Yeah.
San Jose has a ton of veterans. You go to Pavelski, Thornton.
Mm-hmm.
Couture, he's not as young
as he used to be.
He looks still young, but he's not as young as he used to be. I mean, besides you have Hurdle, because obviously they're young and up and comer, but like, most of the team is solid veteran players. So.
And so is the Golden Knights. I mean, you got to remember 2 years ago they didn't exist, and they had to pick players that nobody else wanted.
Exactly.
So everybody's wanting these young guns, so they're protecting them. So they have an older group too as well. Marc-Andre Fleury entering his, I believe, like 14th season, somewhere around there.
He's always been around.
I mean, but before the playoffs, my pick to win the Stanley Cup was probably the Lightning, like most people.
Right.
But watching how the Sharks in this series fought their way back and won the way they did, they're my new favorite to win it all. I mean, the way they went into Game 6 in Vegas, and they were able to keep it a 1-1 game going into overtime, and then double overtime, and then you take a penalty, and then you go score shorthanded to force a Game 7. That was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. It was very surprising. And
who knew the answer to winning a hockey game was taking a penalty in double overtime?
Exactly. And I was kind of thinking to myself, I was sitting on my couch watching the game, and I was like, what if they gave up a shorthanded goal here? Like, how mad would their fans be? And when that happened, I was like, wow.
Yeah. But I don't know if I personally would pick them winning the cup. Got to remember, both these teams were moving in the wrong direction.
Right.
They were 3-5-2, the Golden Knights were, and then the Sharks were 3-6-1 in their last 10 of the regular season.
Yeah, but then at the same time, you look at it and you say, well, a win like that in a series, coming back, down 3-2, winning on the road, winning like they did in Game 7, down 3 goals. You look at the 5-minute major, and you can argue whether it was worth 5 minutes or it was not. But
that's a whole another debate.
At the end of the day, it was a 5-minute major, and the Caps couldn't score a goal on a power play for the last 3 games of the series, and San Jose went out and scored 4 goals in 5 minutes on the power play.
A lot of Golden Knights fans are up in arms, like the refs gave them the game. But, I mean, you can't blame it all on the refs. You had a 3-1 series lead, could have finished it in Game 5, could have finished it in Game 6, and you should have stopped at least one of those. I mean, you can't give up 4 goals on penalty kill.
I mean,
I don't care how long it is. It could be 10 minutes. You can't give up 4 goals.
I mean, the Caps had one in their series, and
Carolina didn't give up any.
Yeah, didn't give them a shot.
Nope.
I mean, it was a really fun game to watch. It was back and forth. I mean, it wasn't the first overtime either of the series. It was a very close game all the way through. Yep. And I think we saw that the same thing with the Stars and Predators. Yeah. Like, 2 really good goaltenders, low-scoring games, but
Pekka Rinne struggles in the playoffs.
He
really struggles in the playoffs, and it's kind of sad to see. They have a huge fan base over there in Nashville. Yeah. It's awesome when the stadium's packed, everyone's in yellow. The cool chant they do after their team scores a goal, it's always funny. But
see, I went down to Nashville a couple summers ago to go to a combine, and this is off season. May I remind you, they worship Pekka Rinne and their top guys.
He was a great goaltender.
In the regular season, he's one of the best ever.
I mean, to see him, like, he got pulled. Game 4?
Yeah.
4 goals on 8 shots?
It was the same thing last year.
Yeah.
The exact same thing last year.
And they also had a series lead. Like, they were winning the series 2-0, and just couldn't get it going.
Yeah, I mean, the Stars are one of those teams, too. In the playoffs, it's if you get hot at the right time, you're set. And that's what the Stars did.
I mean,
they got hot.
We talked about Robin Leonard being a Vezina candidate. The Stars have another one, Ben Bishop.
Ben Bishop, yeah.
Probably
former Lightning, if I'm correct. Right?
Yeah, Lightning. Senator. Yeah. And I mean, if you want to count the King for like 3 weeks. Yeah. But I mean, Coach, we have a saying in hockey, like, if you give up less than 2 goals a game, you should win every game, because you give up 2, you should be able to score 3. Ben Bishop's proven that. He has a 1.98 GAA, and then a .934 save percentage. That's unheard of. I mean, we're talking about the best in the world coming at him.
Yeah, he's a big guy too.
Yeah,
he's a really big guy. I've seen him play before when the Caps have played. I don't know which team it was he was playing for, but he's been thrown around a little bit. But he is a huge dude.
I believe he's like 6'5", and so is Pekka Rinne.
6'7".
Oh, he's 6'7"? Yeah,
he's a big boy.
And Pekka Rinne is like up there as well. Like, they're 2 big goaltenders that know how to like take up space in the net. I wish I was 6'7".
Yeah, for sure. And obviously with Dallas, though, it's just when you have such a star duo like Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn,
Yeah.
like you should
Very
be able
underrated.
to win games.
Very underrated. They're forgotten about it.
Yeah, I actually
Because they're in Dallas.
I had the Predators winning this in 6
Yep.
because
Predators won.
after Ben and what's the other one?
Seguin.
Yeah. I don't see much, honestly. I mean, Miro Heiskanen. But after that, I don't see much. But back to my point earlier, you have a good goalie, you're going to win some games. And Ben Bishop came up clutch, and the fact of the matter is, Pecorine didn't.
Yeah, Dallas was kind of the same way the Islanders were. It seemed like how Pittsburgh would score and the Islanders would just score right back and suck the energy out of the building. Dallas did the same thing. The Predators would get on the board, and then Dallas would just come right back and score and just shut them down.
And on your point about the energy of the building, I don't know if anybody is better in the league than the Stars at controlling the energy in the building.
Yeah.
Like in their own building, they score,
Place goes nuts.
they go harder.
Yep.
But on the road, if they get scored on, they slow the game down, they take the energy out of the building,
That's what it's about.
and then go at them again, score, and then suffocate a team.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's all about in the playoffs, and we saw some crazy things. So I think that's all of our series. Now let's just
Well, yeah, with all the upsets, we gotta fix our bracket a little bit.
Yeah, we gotta fix our bracket and do some predictions here. So to end it up, Peterson, who you got? The Avs or the Sharks?
So this one, the Avs Sharks. I still don't think Martin Jones played his best hockey in that series. I mean, he came up clutch in Game 6, I believe, where he had like 58 shots.
Yeah.
But other than that, consistency, I believe Grubauer takes that. Like I always look at the goalie tandem first, and nobody can argue the amount of pressure that like McKinnon puts on a team.
Yep.
And people look at him on video, say, stop this guy. And we're about 89 games in, and nobody still has been able to do it. So for that pick, I'm taking the Avalanche.
Yeah, I'm going with the Sharks, but I'm going a really close series. I'm going 6 or 7. It's going to be a long series, and I feel like only because the Sharks have home ice advantage that they're going to win. I feel like they play well at home.
Do they?
And yeah, they do.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like Martin Jones is going to step up. I feel like that Game 6 was huge for him.
Mhm.
What was it? Whatever you said, 58 saves.
Yeah.
I was watching that game. He was playing. He was standing on his head. So that's why I think the Sharks in that series will let you.
I'm gonna go with the Sharks. Sign of solely reason that I lived in Ottawa. I think this is about to be Erik Karlsson's coming out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you guys haven't seen how Erik Karlsson can carry a team yet because nobody watches Ottawa games, but he can, when he wants to, he can take over any game.
Yeah.
He can just go and he can just fly. Like, I think you'll see him coming out in this playoffs. This is my prediction. You're going to remember this is Erik Karlsson's playoffs.
Erik Karlsson's fine. Declan Vargas said it.
I do agree with you. It's going to be a close series. It's going to be 6 or 7. It's going to be
tight.
It's going to be like inch for an inch. It's going to be very close.
Yep. So let's move on. Blues Stars. Not what anyone was expecting, but
definitely not.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to go with the Blues. I'm just a big fan of Jordan Binnington. Like, I mean, the amount of confidence Binnington has. Like, he played one game in the NHL. He was asked a question in the post-game interview. Said, wasn't nervous playing out there in your first NHL game? And he turned to the reporter and says, do I look nervous? Like, that's a lot of confidence coming from a rookie after one game.
Yeah, they're just too hot right now. The Stars are a good team, but I see this being a 5 or 6 game series.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it going the distance, and I see the Blues moving on to the conference final.
A point earlier we were talking about what was it? The Blues were winning this because of their goalie.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about how Columbus was playing playoff hockey a month ago.
Yep.
Blues were playing playoff hockey since the All-Star break.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think this one is they've been tuned to play playoff hockey for a little bit. They know that it's been do or die.
Yep.
And I think they just have the
Advantage.
mentality. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, the Dallas put up a fight. They also have a very good goalie, but
Yeah.
They do,
just Blues are just too hot. Just
Yeah.
too much swagger. Just Lundqvist has swagger from.
Also a very young team in the Blues. I mean, I think their oldest guys like Ryan O'Reilly being a good leader and leading the team, but the rest, it's a very young team. Like, they were supposed to be rebuilding since last year and this year, and they just said, okay, done with the rebuilding time, just go to playoffs real quick, maybe win a Stanley Cup, but
Never know.
So that's our Western Conference predictions. Let's go over to our last two series in the Eastern Conference. We got the Bruins and the Jackets. Who you got?
Man,
That's a tough one.
So you can't really make any predictions anymore because you don't know what's going to happen.
yeah, I mean, if I'm going off goalie duo, I mean, I would put Tuukka Rask and Sergei Bobrovsky on an even playing field. I think the Blue Jackets. I mean, they're going to fight for this one. The last one with the Bruins and the Maple Leafs were close. I think Tortorella's just going to outcoach Cassidy.
Yep.
So I think, and plus, Bruins are coming off of Game 7. Blue Jackets have been tuning it up, getting ready for whoever's winning this.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, the Jackets are either going to come out really, really good or a little slow. I think it's going to be really good. I don't see how you can lose in the second round after you just knocked off a team like the Lightning in 4 games. I got the Jackets going to the conference final. I think it's going to go 6.
Yeah, the only thing I want to make on that is, like, we have been talking about all these teams playing playoff hockey since the All-Star break. The only thing I'm worried about with the Blue Jackets is this break that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, the worst part of hockey, or the worst feeling you can have in hockey, is being comfortable.
Yeah.
And they've been sitting at home, drinking and partying since they beat the President's Trophy winners.
Yeah, took the point out of my mouth. That's what I was gonna say. That's why I'm actually gonna go the other way. I think they've been sitting too long, and they don't have the surprise factor anymore. The Bruins know exactly what they're gonna come out and try to do.
Oh yeah, nobody's sleeping on them.
It's a very similar, up-in-your-face style of play as any Tortorella team was. And the Bruins, Boston teams, they always love to be up in your face.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna go Bruins in 7.
Right,
Yeah,
gotcha.
7 is a good point. Like, again, a very close match, and it's going to be like we talked about. Who was it? It was the Boston and Toronto game. They're going at each other's throats, and I expect the same thing here.
Worse in this series,
And there's no sleeping on the Blue Jackets anymore.
Yeah. So our last series to predict here, the Islanders and the Canes. I'm going to be a little biased here, and I want the Islanders to beat them to the ground. To be honest, the Caniac fans over there in Raleigh, they're crazy. It's going to be tough for the Islanders to go into Raleigh and win, but at the same time, Nassau Coliseum, wherever they play, is going to be rocking.
I think it's the Islanders. I mean, everybody picked the Capitals because nobody expected the Hurricanes to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I don't think the Hurricanes are built to play playoff hockey.
Right.
I think the Islanders are just coached well, they're built well, and they all know what they're doing. I think the Islanders would have this maybe 5.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to be one of the quicker series we see.
Well, that might be just the Caps fans inside us.
Well,
hating on the Canes a little bit, but
I mean,
I agree with you.
I mean,
agree with you.
2 years ago, we had the Penguins going for their 3-peat.
Mm.
Well, the Islanders just swept them.
Yeah.
And it's basically the same core as a couple of years ago.
Yep.
So
I'm going Islanders in 5.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I also think this might be an interesting hot take. I think
Ooh, a hot
whoever
take.
wins the Bruins or Jackets, they're gonna steamroll. Whoever wins this, if it's the Islanders, I think
Okay.
they're just gonna run right through them.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's either we're either gonna have the Jackets, or my pick, the Bruins, gonna be in the finals this year.
Okay, so that leads us to the conference final. So we had the, you guys had the Sharks beating
Yeah,
the
I got the
Avalanche.
Sharks beating the Avs and the Blues beating the Stars real quick. I think the Sharks win, as I said earlier.
So you think the Sharks go to the final?
I think the Sharks make it to the final, and then I also think that the Jackets are going to make it to the Stanley Cup final. And
Okay.
I think the Sharks are going to beat them.
I think the Blues and the Islanders are going to meet, in my opinion.
That's fair.
Two teams, one built really well for playoff hockey, the other one been hottest teams since the All-Star break. I see that being a very close match. I see Blues and Islanders in the Stanley Cup final. And I think that one's going to go 7.
And you never know. You just toss it up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, with this playoff,
at this point,
with this playoff, you just have to throw things in the air.
Toss every series.
See what sticks at the wall.
Yeah. All right, Declan, last one. Who you got?
Last one.
The cup?
So I think winning the cup now. So I think it's going to be a Sharks-Bruins finals.
Okay.
I think I think the Sharks are going to win. I'm trying to think how many games. I think it's either going to be 6 or 7.
It's going to be
overtime. Carlson winner.
Yeah, I mean,
big Carlson.
Big Carlson. I'm a very big Carlson guy.
Once the Stanley Cup comes into the mix, that's not going to be a sweep. People want that, and they're going to fight for every inch. I think that just about wraps up our Stanley Cup recap and our predictions. Any last words? Any last opinions?
No.
I think we're good.
This has been the NHL Playoff Podcast, and we'll see you next week with the next show.
Yeah.